Westminster Shorter Catechism, questions 70 to 72. Question 70. Which is the seventh commandment? The seventh commandment is, thou shalt not commit adultery. Question 71. What is required in the seventh commandment? The seventh commandment requireth the preservation of our own and our neighbor's chastity in heart, speech, and behavior. Question 72. What is forbidden in the seventh commandment? The seventh commandment forbiddeth all unchaste thoughts, words, and actions. Now, in our last lesson, we got to the heart, or at least we began to get to the heart of Christian ethics. Sin does not start with outward actions, but it begins with the heart and the inward disposition of man. It is there that sin is conceived, born, and oftentimes nursed. And from there, it issues forth in sinful actions, for from the heart flow the issues of life. We saw how that was with the sin of murder. Murder begins in the heart, and it issues forth in anger and insults. Emotions and words are sinful, as well as actions. And the same is the case with adultery. Here too, sin is conceived in the heart and issues forth in emotions, thoughts, words, and actions. So first of all, in question 71, it makes clear that there is a responsibility to both self and others. The seventh commandment requires to preserve our own chastity and that of our neighbor. So if we are ourselves acting chaste, if we ourselves are being faithful in our marriages, but we do or we say something that causes another person to become unchaste in their thoughts or actions, well, we have sinned against them and have broken the commandment. That means that we need to be concerned for all of our words and actions as well as our thoughts and imaginations. We are to be as concerned about the inward disposition of our mind and hearts as well as our outward actions, to be sure that such actions lead not others into temptation. Jesus says, woe to the one by whom the temptation comes. And furthermore, in Mark chapter 9, verse 42, he says, whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him if a great millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea. So we are not to be the cause of others to stumble. Romans chapter 14, verse 21. But also, with regard to ourselves, we are to actively pursue our own chastity. We are to be actively engaged in avoiding temptation, to take ourselves out of contexts in which temptations may arise, never trusting our flesh to resist the temptation when it comes, for the flesh cannot be trusted. But the commandment extends beyond and deeper than simply having an affair. It also includes thoughts, words, and actions. Again, the Sermon on the Mount gives us our guide, where in Matthew chapter 5, verse 27, it says, you have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. Verse 28, Jesus goes on, but I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Here, the Lord Jesus proves himself the master ethicist. With the cheap righteousness of the Pharisees as his target, he begins to expound the true meaning and application of the law. He stands in stark contrast, Jesus does, with his teaching, to the easy exposition of the law by the Pharisees who tried to master the law, to control it, and to sort of make it keepable for their own particular abilities, or at least deceive themselves into thinking they had the ability to keep the law. And the Pharisees know they are able to look good on the outside. They know they can make themselves appear righteous on the outside, to appear to be good, faithful husbands to their wives, not one of them having been stoned for adultery. But Jesus is about to bust their self-righteous bubble. To harbor in one's heart lust for another woman is adultery. It's already a breaking of the commandment. When a desire within is inflamed with passion for another, the command has already been violated, even if the outward affair is not carried out. How many marriages do we know that appear good to the human eye? But in the eyes of God, there is constant, daily adultery. When the eyes wander and the lusts are entertained, when thoughts are turned to illicit imaginations and affections are made to rest upon another or upon others, and here, adultery has already been committed. Now, to be sure, an outwardly faithful marriage is a good thing, and we should never think that where there is heart adultery, that the marriage is in as bad of an estate as if there had been an affair. No, the outward action brings damage that is not present with the inward disposition of the heart. But the point is this: sin is an act of the whole person. Thoughts, words, actions. That's what the Catechism is trying to teach us here. Sin begins with the heart, and while it may not issue in an outward action or an outward sinful action, such heart adultery or heart sin is sin still. It is sin that deserves nothing less than the just wrath and curse of God. Jesus does not allow the self-righteousness of the Pharisees to get off the hook. And he doesn't allow our self-righteousness off the hook. Jesus makes the full meaning of the law and its demands to bear fully upon our conscience. Having a marriage that is faithful is a wonderful thing. But just because we have an unbroken marriage doesn't mean that we have been sinless or wholly upright in it. For we break the command anytime we entertain such lusts. And that goes for single people too. Any sexual relationship which arises outside of the bounds of marriage between one man and one woman, whether in thought, word, or deed, breaks the commandment and is sin. These may be hard words from Jesus, but as hard words, he's actually making things easier for us in his mercy. If we have eyes to see, if we have ears to hear, he makes it easier for us to see our sin. The thoroughness of our sinfulness, that we actually are not righteous in ourselves, but have broken the law at every point, knowing that while our outward appearance may look good, our invisible sins are always there and visible to God. Once again, this is God's blessing to us, that through the law we might see our sin, so that through the law we might also see our great and precious Redeemer.